Touhou Lostword's Endgame is looking up, with new Elemental EX stages after almost 9 months, and JP's new take on the Endgame which focuses less on farming. But power creep remains a problem, so today we're gonna look at Wood EX and see how it deals with power creep. Wood EX features 0 guards and 0 locks, two of the things people hate the most from the JP EX stages. But you still see tons of people complaining about Wood EX, so why is that the case? Well, besides the fact that people just like to complain, it's mostly because of power creep. When developers design a stage, they have to think of which characters would do very well and balance the stage around them. They need to make sure a stage doesn't get cheesed by a single character, but at the same time have to keep it easy enough for the people who don't have that character. Of course, the character I'm talking about is White Koishi, who has lots of wood and deals tons of damage as he hits her killers. But generally strong characters like Blue Moo, who has not as much wood, and Beach Yukari, who doesn't have any wood at all, still remain quite strong in this stage. So let's deconstruct Wood EX to find out what you really need to clear this stage. Wood EX features the Watatsuki sisters as enemies, each with 7 barriers. You're gonna need lots of wood or anomaly breaks to get through those, but it won't be so easy because Otohime restores 4 barriers to her team every turn. So if you don't full break them in one turn, Otohime will restore those barriers right back. You'll definitely want to get rid of the healer first, but Kanagi also has an annoying skill which cleanses 4 of her own barriers. That means it removes any anomalies such as burn, poison, paralyze that you inflict onto her. Because of this, anomaly breaking has limited effectiveness against her, but some characters' spell cards are able to inflict and immediately break anomalies, which would still be effective against her because it doesn't give her the time to cleanse them. Congratulations! You have full broken the enemies. Now all you need to do is deal, what's that? 1 million damage? Okay, the enemies resist all elements except wood, which they're weak to, so using wood effectively quadruples our damage. But even better than wood are killers, which guarantee a crit, and depending on how many stacks of crit attack buffs you have, that means anywhere from 2 times to 5 times the damage. Unfortunately, these enemies are not from Genshokyo, they are not humans, and they are not yokai, so most of the common killers do not hit them. They have some niche tags, but the one that stands out is Parallel Presence. It's the one that White Koishi hits them with. Yorihime is also a god and a shrine maiden for some reason. But let's go back to Parallel Presence. It turns out all the relic units, or those from music videos, possess this killer, and they have it everywhere on all their attacks. Even though these units don't have a lot of wood, they all have spell cards which can inflict and immediately break anomalies, which gets around Yorihime's anomaly heal skill. In case you haven't noticed, this game is all about breaking barriers and then dealing damage. What differentiates one stage from another are the various obstacles put in place which hinder your ability to do so. So, how does Wood EX compare to the other EX stages? If you're enjoying the video, please consider subscribing. I have been working to increase the quality of these videos and I have more plans, so please leave a like and comment for the algorithm so I can bring quality content to a larger audience. Compared to the JP EX stages, Wood EX is, well, it's hard to say because the JP EX stages have some easy ones and some very difficult ones. So let's just compare Wood EX to the other Elemental EX stages, all made by Phantasma. Wood EX certainly feels like the hardest Elemental EX stage, and that's because it is. But it's not because the developers hate us, as I hinted at earlier, it's because of power creep. Wood EX has only been out for about 2 weeks. If you compare Wood EX to the first 2 weeks of some of the other Elemental EX stages, it's really not that bad. Just like Wood EX and White Koishi, all of them had pretty much just one character which was really good in the stage, and if you didn't have that character, you would have a difficult time. Moon EX by our friend Kanagi, Fire EX by... oh, okay, that stage is a bit of a joke. Water EX by Otohime and to some extent Loliko, and Star EX by Hunter x Hunter Flan. These stages were released 9 to 12 months ago, and there are a lot more options making them a lot more accessible nowadays. Just look at Star EX, who can now be beaten by Megumu and Beats Marisa, Gatekeeper and Beats Marisa, Hunter x Hunter Flan and Beats Marisa, L1 Melissa and beats Melissa, L1 Raisin and beats Melissa, and many more. The point is, these stages are balanced around the strong characters at the time they were made, and in the future, as more and more characters are released, the stages will only become easier. This results in a challenging stage which endgame players can attempt, which slowly gets easier and easier, making it more accessible to the wider player base. Even Wood EX already got more accessible with the release of Dr. Yuka, who I believe will be the second best unit in the stage. I think these stages are really well balanced, except maybe Fire EX, which is a little too easy. Wood EX is difficult enough that it doesn't just get walked over by generally strong characters like Bikali and Blue Boo, but manageable enough that multiple people have made farms using only general pool units. This difficulty level feels quite similar to Moon EX's first release, but back then, the available options were very limited. Kanagi or a bunny was pretty much a hard requirement. For Wood EX, a lot of units can perform decently in the stage, especially the relic units, which makes the stage much more accessible to veteran players regardless of which units they decided to pull. So what exactly makes Wood EX so much more difficult? You might think that they bumped up the enemy HP values, but that isn't really the case. If you multiply the HP by the defense values, you'll see that Wood EX doesn't have that high of a HP total, especially if you compare it to Star EX. However, Wood EX only has one usable bomb item compared to 2 in Star EX. In case you're unfamiliar, the bomb item restores the last words of all your characters, making the stage a lot more manageable. Wood EX also has 2 enemies as compared to Star EX, which makes solo targeting attacks a lot less useful. But the main reason why Wood EX feels very hard to nuke is because of the lack of tags. Tags like Yokai and Gensokyo, which make your units hit their killers. As I explained earlier, killers are even more important for dealing damage than simply hitting the right element. The lack of relevant killers makes common wood units like USD Reimu, Iku and Yachi feel a lot less powerful in this stage. Okay, so it's hard to deal damage, but what about breaking? Wood EX only has 2 enemies compared to 3 in Moon and Water EX, so it shouldn't be so... Oh right, yeah, there's that. Because of Otohime's barrier restoration, it's very hard to full break with Wood EX enemies. Star EX comes pretty close because your Grace Locked and Altarisa hits pretty hard, but instead of full breaking in one turn, you can also just set up some defense to tank or just remove the Grace Lock. Yorihime also has some evasion on the first and last gauges. It doesn't really add to the difficulty, but it's something you need to account for. Finally, there's one mechanic which actually works in your favor, and that is Yorihime's focus down. This essentially redirects damage to her sister, which can make it easier to focus down the annoying healer. So besides the relic units and White Squishy, who I've mentioned before, who else will be good in this stage? There are 3 main roles here: breakers to break barriers, nukers to deal damage, and supporters to provide your team with buffs and spirit power. Dr. Yuka has lots of woods and a last word which hits killers, so she can break and nuke. She also has a little bit of team support. Scarlet Patchy has burn, insta-break and wood on her all-targeting spell card. She can also nuke pretty hard because she has high crit accuracy. Shaman has some wood breaks, but more importantly, Luna Capital Killer, meaning she can do lots of damage even with her spell cards. Beats Yukari, even though she has no wood and her lock removal isn't useful, she does have good team support and hits killer, so she can deal lots of damage. PCB Yukari's damage isn't great in this stage, but she has lots of wood and has lots of support. Basically, if you can fill 2 out of 3 of these roles, you can be pretty decent in the stage, and this applies to any other stage as well. They have just announced the Versus Divergent Spirit stages on Global, which starts off easy and gets harder as you progress. If you have never tried any endgame stages, now is a better time than ever. If you want to learn more, check out some of my previous videos where I go more in-depth into the strategy, link in the description. That's it for today, subscribe, press the buttons, and see you next time.